Shout out to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. Hello everyone, in this week's video I'm going to try to find my hyper style. A while back I made a video where I'm trying to find my anti-style, and in that video I brought up the idea of trying to find a style that's like my style but to the extreme. I didn't know what I would call this style, and many of you suggested hyper style, so that's what I'm going to call it. Also, if you haven't watched the anti-style video, I recommend you do so since I will be referring to it a lot in this video. But anyways, let's try finding my hyper style. So like with my anti-style video, I'm starting by making a list of things I want for this style. And basically I'm going to be trying to take the characteristics of my art and push them even more. So the eyes will be super big. I'll use tons of bright saturated colors. I'm thinking maybe I'll try a more lineless style for this to help it have a very different look from my normal style. Also, when I describe my hyper style, super big eyes, super fluffy hair, I start to think of chibi characters. However, I want to try to avoid this style just looking like chibi characters. I want it to be a little more unique, so I'm going to try my best to do that. So first let's start with a comparison. First we have my kind of normal style of head. It's a bit round, but not too round. And yeah, it's how I usually draw heads. Next is the anti-style head. It's more stylized and is very pointy in shape, and the irises are very small and dark. My normal style is kind of round, so I'm going to push it with this hyper style and make it very round, like as round and soft as I possibly can. I'm going to try to avoid sharp corners at all cost. Also, of course, the eyes will be super big and shiny. Here I'm kind of playing around with the proportions. I wanted to see how big I could push the eyes without them looking too weird. And yeah, these eyes were all very big, but I didn't like how they were feeling. The style was feeling very early era anime chibis, if that makes sense. And that's not what I was really looking for. I found that for my anti-style, it helped when I started to just kind of sketch instead of being super systematic with things. And with this sketch, instead of an oval eye, I went with a very round iris and more circular shapes. Since the eyes are so large, they take up a lot of the face area, so to help balance things, I will minimize the nose and the mouth. But yeah, I really liked the circle irises, but for some reason I kind of forget this for a little bit. And you'll see that in the footage. I was starting to like the head proportions, so I thought I would move on to the body. I'm not sure how much I should talk about this footage because I end up not really using these body proportions at all in my final piece. These proportions here are nice and I do like them, but once again they still feel very chibi, and that's not a bad thing. I love chibi characters and I think they are adorable. I just wanted something different. But for this next bit of footage, you'll notice the style is looking very chibi-like until I go to the final illustration. One thing I did note is I wanted the hip area to be a bit wider to help balance out the head and the body. It helps give the torso a little bit of weight. Oh, also, over here with this sketch, I randomly got the idea to make the little hair piece that sticks up float and not connect to the head. And for some reason, I really liked this idea and wanted to include it. It also gave me an idea for the eyes. Instead of connecting the eyelashes, I thought, what if I have them float? The reason for this is I like the way I can make the eyelashes thick and bold, but by not fully connecting them, the eyelashes still feel kind of light and not heavy like the character is wearing tons of mascara. Some people might not like this idea. It is kind of a stylized, funky choice. But I felt like it was kind of fun and unique, so I wanted to give it a try. I also was playing around with how I wanted to fill the irises. As we know, I want the irises to be super shiny, and once again, I'm not sure how much I should talk about this footage because I kind of scrap all this experimentation with the final picture. When trying to find a style or how you want to do things, sometimes it takes a lot of different tries, and that's okay because a lot of times you learn something from each attempt you try. Like something I learned here is that I want to add colors around the highlights to make them feel even more colorful and bright. Now that I'm starting to get more of an idea of what I want, I'm going to go to this file for my anti-style video where I had pictures of Doris in my normal style and I sketched them in my anti-style. I thought it'd be fun to use these same pictures as a comparison, so now I'm going to draw them in the hyper style, or a kind of variation of it. Like I keep saying, it kind of changes in the final picture. As we can see with the anti-style, all of my lines are pretty sharp and there are hardly any super curved lines. This makes things look more edgy and harsh, but since I want a softer look for this, I'm going to use as much curving lines as I can and try to keep things very round in shape. I may have gone a little overboard with the hair movement, but I was just playing around and having fun with it. I feel like where this style will be very different is the rendering. I'm going to use very saturated colors, and for the shadows I'm going to make them very saturated too, and also play around a lot with the hue shifts. I want to try to throw in a lot of different colors. Since this coloring is for sketches, I was only blocking in the colors, but I'll go into more detail for the final illustration. Right now I kind of wanted to just get the overall theme of what kind of colors I want to use and get an idea of what I like together. Also, I didn't really execute it here, but I do want to try to go with a more lineless look for the final style. So here I'm going over my sketch with colors to kind of make the sketch less apparent. Oh, also, I posted a new chapter of my webcomic over on my webcomic channel. Thank you all so much for your patience. The chapters I've been working on have been much longer than usual, but I hope you all enjoy the chapter and that the wait was worth it. There's a couple scenes in this chapter that I was waiting a long time to draw, and it was kind of weird finally getting to draw them, but I really enjoyed it. So yeah, there are links in the description if you want to go read the chapter. Oh, also, I decided on what I'm going to do for my Valentine's Day special this year. I know many of you are anticipating another visual novel game like I made in previous years, and I was planning to make one. However, I couldn't think of a new concept that I really liked or that really inspired me, and I didn't want to make a game just to make one. I want to make one I'm excited about. So yeah, I'm not making a game this year for Valentine's Day, but I do hope to possibly make one again in the future if I can think of a concept that I really like or want to go with. But like I said, I do have a different fun project planned. I don't want to spoil it, but I do hope you all enjoy the video when it comes out. It's gonna take a good amount of work on my end, but I'm very excited about the project and think it'll be fun to work on. The Valentine's Day special will be going up on February 11th, so the Saturday before Valentine's Day. But anyways, here are the sketches of Doris in the hyper style. Next, I wanted to play around with different facial features like I did last time with the anti-style. This allows me to try different face characteristics and see if the style is versatile. That kind of rhymed. Of course, first we have the generic face. One thing I did want to comment on is that I'm making the blushies of the cheeks also float off the face. I thought it'd be kind of cute. Next is a more shy or nervous expression. And this is when I got the idea to make the irises different shapes depending on the personality of the character. Since the eyes do take up so much space on the face, I figured I should try to put as much personality into them as I can. So for these eyes, I made them a kind of round shape that is more of a hill-like shape at the top, if that makes sense. They're kind of more narrow at the top and get wider at the bottom. And for the sassy face, I'm trying to make the irises more almond or pointy in shape. But like I said, I'm trying to avoid pointy shapes, so I don't push the pointiness too much. In the anti-style, this was the simple cute face, but I feel like all of the faces are kind of simple and cute. So this time I went for a more bored expression. To do this, I made the tops of the eyes very flat. Also, I was slightly playing around with different shapes for the noses. They are very small, so it doesn't make too much of a difference, but it does give a bit of a different look depending on what kind of dot or line I place. This time I was kind of having fun and trying to make a very expressive crying face. I made the irises very wiggly. You often see this in cartoons and anime. When a character is sad, the irises get very interesting in shape, and the shape can make the eyes look more watery. Last is the angry face. Once again, I'm making the shapes a little more pointy to make the expression feel more aggressive. It is amazing how different shapes can give a very different feeling. I did really like all the faces, but when I took a step back and looked at all of them, I did think they were cute, but I was also like, oh no, they all look very chibi-like. And I was feeling a little disappointed by this. I started to think about it and ask myself, what is making the heads look like chibi heads? And what I came up with is because the heads are flat on the sides and kind of tall in shape, and the eyes are more oval in shape, that kind of makes it look more chibi-ish. And so to try to make things look less chibi, I'm going to try to be less oval with the shapes and more circle. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier, but didn't put into practice. So for the finished piece, I'm going to try to proportion the head more like this. It gives a very similar vibe, but doesn't feel as standard chibi. Now that I've done a lot of experimenting, it's time to try to take everything I've learned and apply it to a finished illustration. But before we do, I want to thank Tokyo Treat and Sakura for sponsoring this video. Their goal is to share Japanese culture and invite everyone to experience Japan from the comfort of their own homes through their snack boxes. Tokyo Treat and Sakura are both monthly Japanese snack subscription boxes. but both offer different experiences. First, we have Tokyo Treat. You'll get up to 20 of the latest, most exclusive, limited edition, and seasonal flavored Japanese snacks that are only available in Japan for a limited time. This box is celebrating Valentine's Day with the theme of My Snack and Valentine. Experience a true Valentine's Day in Japan with heartwarming sweets and treats like the Kit Kat Lucky Daifuku, Supa Mucho Sour Plum Chips, Karai Spicy Ramen, and many more. You can learn more about all the snacks you receive, as well as allergen information in this really helpful booklet. The booklet also contains a ton of really neat information about Japanese culture. Two of my personal favorite snacks from this box are the Pakila chocolate wafers and Ginza strawberry rusks. Delectably rich milk chocolate and almonds are sandwiched between layers of crispy wafer. They are so yummy and the chocolate is really good. Light, airy, and not too sweet, these Ginza strawberry rusk strawberry flavor will keep you coming back for more. They are a lovely light snack. Next we have Sakurako. If you're looking for an authentic Japanese snack subscription box, this one is for you. Each box comes with 20 traditional and authentic artisan Japanese snacks, including Japanese teas, and one special Japanese tableware. Sakurako is partnering with local Japanese snack makers to continue to share Japanese culture and traditions that have been passed down for over 100 years. This time Sakurako is partnering with Osaka Prefectural Government to introduce to you Osaka's easy-to-love treats and teas in a specially designed box. Experience artisan Japanese treats like the strawberry dorayaki, mane kinako senbai, and kinako dumplings with a loved one or by yourself. This month's kitchenware is a kinchidori soup bowl. Its design is super adorable. I love the little birdies. Two of my favorite snacks from this box are the ogura and pie and chocolate mochi. These ogura and pies are super good. They are filled with a slightly sweet red bean paste and the crust is super tender and buttery. They are so yummy. I wish I had more of them. Mochi is one of my favorite Japanese snacks, so I was super happy to see it in this box. Each little mochi is wrapped in an edible rice paper, and they are really good. Don't forget to use my code DRAWMANGA to get $5 off your first box, as these boxes are a perfect way to experience Japan for yourself. If you want to get your own box, check out the links below. Thank you so much again to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to drawing. First, for the illustration, I needed to decide on a pose. And for some reason, this was very difficult. I think I was struggling because I didn't totally know how I wanted to proportion the character. In my head, I was thinking maybe I would go with proportions where the limbs are more lanky and the feet and hands are really small. I was thinking of going in this direction because for the anti-style, I made the feet and hands on the larger side. So this time, I'd make them small. However, because of this, things kept feeling very out of balance. Like the head felt huge and the body felt too light and like it didn't have any sturdiness to it, if that makes sense. After many different attempts and some frustration, I took a break for a bit. And after my break, I was feeling a bit better and felt like I knew what direction I wanted to kind of go in. Something I mentioned at the start is that I want to make the lower body wider to help keep things balanced. So I made sure to include that here. For the anti-style, I tried to make the pose and everything feel very heavy. And like everything had a kind of downward motion. I feel like as I'm trying to describe all these things, I keep using abstract language, but I hope I'm making sense. So for this hyper style, I wanted everything to feel light, flowy, and airy. So I'm trying to make everything have a flow to it and feel more light. It's kind of weird because I feel like I did a lot of experimenting for this style, but I didn't truly decide on anything until I started working on this illustration. I was feeling very wishy-washy before starting it and like I couldn't totally decide on what I liked. In fact, I almost scrapped this pose as well, but then I told myself, no, just pick something and stick with it. Stop overthinking. And that little bit of self-talk seemed to help me get into the right mindset. I was slightly debating still on how I wanted the limbs to be styled. I did go with a more lanky look to help the characters not look like a chibi. A lot of times chibis are more soft, round, and stubby, so by making the limbs longer, it gives a different feeling. I almost went with small hands, but like I said, I want things to feel balanced, and in this case, I felt like slightly bigger or round hands helped things feel a bit more sturdy. In comparison to the head, the hands are still very small, but they are large enough to provide the balance I was wanting. For the bent legs and arms, I tried something a bit different. A lot of times when a leg is bent, I make there be a crease. However, I'm trying to keep the forms feeling soft and round, so I decided to not draw any creases and instead have these areas be a kind of curved line. If you think about it too much, it doesn't really make sense, but it gives more of a soft look, and that's what I want. Sometimes with stylization, you have to forget about reality and focus more on the feeling or look that you want. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Like with the hands, I made the feet small, but still big enough that they feel balanced, or at least I hope they do. I also really stylized the shoes and kind of overemphasized their features to make them more cartoony. Doris's hair is on the shorter side, but because of how I'm proportioning things and I want the hair to be super flowy, I decided to draw it in a longer style than usual. I also made the hair be super swirly and kind of curly just to add to the round feeling and flowiness. I do kind of wished I would have tried drawing a boy character in this style. I only drew girls, and I'm kind of curious how I would stylize male proportions and how fluffy I would make the hair for shorter styles. If I have time, maybe I'll quickly sketch out a boy character in this kind of style, but we'll see if I have time. My main concern is that boys won't feel as balanced because I wouldn't be able to make the hips as large. I would maybe have to balance them more with larger feet and hands to help give them some weight. But we'll see what I come up with if I have time. After my rough sketch, I'm doing the cleanup sketch. I was considering not doing this, but I knew it would make the next part of the process much simpler if my sketch was super clean. Like I said, I wanted to try a more lineless look for this style. I feel like doing minimal line art will help the art feel more light and also give it a different look from my usual style. Instead of doing line art and filling it in with colors like a coloring book, I'm going around and outlining the different shapes of colors and filling them in. The trickiest part with lineless work for me is managing the layers. Each different shape or batch of colors has their own layer, and I try to arrange the layers in a way that makes creating the different shapes easier, but sometimes it takes a lot of thinking. Like for the hair, I had to finagle with the layers a lot to get it to work, and I had to manually draw around some sections since the hair layer was over a lot of the others. But after I got all the colors down, I decided to go around some edges and add some line art to certain sections. I still wanted to include some line art just because I like being able to define the shapes a bit, especially if the colors are similar to each other. But I also just thought it sounded fun and interesting. At first I was going to use lines that didn't taper and had a very rounded end to them, but I felt like the lines were kind of calling too much attention and didn't flow into the shapes nicely, so I decided to taper the ends to make them fade in better and not have such a strong starting and stopping point. Oh, also, I used different colors depending on what I was outlining, just to keep things colorful. So like if we're outlining the shirt, I used more of a green or blue, and for the skin I used more of an orange, and so on. Now it was time to start adding the shading, and this part was so much fun. If you watch my videos, you know I love the coloring process, but being able to use tons of colors at like full saturation and making things look super shiny was so much fun. One thing I kind of learned while doing this is that you can kind of get away with using a lot of different colors if you don't change the value of the color and you only change the hue. If you don't change how dark or light the color is and only change the hue, you are able to get away with using more colors for some reason. I'm thinking it's because since they're all the same value, it doesn't call your eye's attention as much. Whereas if you keep changing the value, it's a little bit more distracting, I think. At least that's my logic behind it. But by keeping all the colors the same value and only changing the hue, you're able to kind of throw in a lot of colors. And doing this also makes it so that the darks don't get super dark, so it results in a very bright and colorful feeling. That being said, I did have to do adjustments later because a lot of my shadows and highlights were really similar in value, and I wanted them to be a little more different, so I had to fix that a bit during the finishing process, mostly by making my shadows a bit darker. Another thing I did a lot is using a color of a warmer hue around the edges of shadows. This makes the coloring feel warmer and also helps things pop. I had a lot of fun adding the extra colors. It also helps the shadows feel a little bit more cool in color, and a lot of times shadows are cooler in their hue, so it's an easy way to do that. Something I did struggle with a bit was deciding on how I wanted to shade the eyes. At first I made the white highlight very large and it was taking up most of the iris, but I felt like this wasn't resulting in an eye that felt super shiny. So I tried shrinking the highlight down and allowing for more color to show through. I was liking this more, but I don't know, it still wasn't quite shiny enough. I tried shading the eye in my more usual way, however this was feeling kind of uncanny for some reason, and like it just didn't fit in with the rest of the picture. It felt a little too different in style, However, it did give me the idea to try adding a pupil to the iris, and I felt like this helped a lot, and I was able to add more highlights that I wanted. It allowed me to add a round color highlight to the bottom of the iris, and I always like adding this to make the irises look more glassy and shiny. I probably have said shiny way too many times in this video, but I'm making everything shiny, so I kind of have to. I did really enjoy the anti-style video and trying something really different from usual. But I have to say, I think I had even more fun with this hyperstyle video because it's taking everything I like and pushing it to a more extreme level. I was able to experiment with things that I love in very different ways. With my normal style, it is stylized and colorful and shiny, but I often try to still keep things a little bit more in reality, or I don't know if that's totally the right word because it is really stylized and stuff, but like, for example, if I was drawing jean fabric in my style, I would try to not let it get super shiny because jeans aren't usually shiny. However, here I forget reality and just do whatever I think looks really neat. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time. I think my favorite elements from this style are the floating eyelashes and hair. For some reason, I really like those elements and I feel like it makes things feel unique. And I do also like the mixture of some areas having line art and some areas not. I'm really pleased with how the look of it turned out. It gives the simple lineless feel, but also lets me define areas if needed. Oh, also my sister Reagan suggested adding screen tone dots to the shadows, and I thought that sounded cute, so I added some. It kind of gives it a pop art kind of feel. But yeah, here is the finished picture and all of the other experimentation. I really enjoyed trying to find my hyper style, and I really want to play around with it some more. I'm going to start having a lot of styles I want to play around with if I keep this up. But I do hope you all enjoyed this video and watching me try new things. Before we end, I want to say a super big thank you to my super awesome YouTube members and Patreon patrons. Your support means so much to me. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!